Hi, I'm Arik Bjorn. On February 13, 2026, a six-figure full-page ad ran in the New York Times, right there, for a play about the first victim of the Holocaust, the man who interrogated Hitler in court, Hans Litten. The playwright dedicated the play to me. This play is dedicated to Arik Bjorn, who kept the torch for Litten burning in the long years when he was forgotten. I wish I could say this was thrilling news. Unfortunately, it is not. In fact, after reading the play, I demanded in writing that the playwright not dedicate the play to me. I will not be attending the performance, and again, I require that the dedication to me be removed. In quotes. The playwright decided to dedicate it to me anyway. Here's the story. I have spent more than 20 years researching and writing about Hans Litten, with a writing partner, Debi King McMartin, who lives in Louisiana. Our other writing partner, Lyn Morgan, sadly passed away several years ago. 2 decades ago, I discovered a lost Holocaust archive at the University of South Carolina while attending graduate school for my Library and Information Science master's degree. This archive contains hundreds of pages about the attempt of Lord Allen of Hurtwood from the UK and others to save Litten from the camps. Actually, even before the camps, going all the way back to the burning of the Reichstag. The day Hitler rose to power, he rounded up his most immediate political threats and tossed them into Spandau prison in Berlin. Litten was the first to be arrested. No historian I contacted, including the great scholar Martin Gilbert, had even heard of this archive. Debi, Lyn, and I wrote a screenplay about Hans Litten that was seriously considered for production by 2 Oscar-winning directors, Anthony Minghella and Sidney Pollack. Unfortunately, both men died 6 months after they met in London to discuss the project. We have continued seeking a production company for the film, which is titled Litten's Passion. We have also just finished a novelization about Litten's life, the same title. Last year, when I earnestly believed I was going to die from long COVID, I presented my photocopies of the Lord Allen archive to a professor at Baruch College. I wanted to make sure the world didn't lose track of this part of the Hans Litten story. As to this day, the USC archive remains entirely unknown to the public. This archive includes letters to and from Lord Allen to von Ribbentrop, Corder Catchpool, Hans' mother Litten, Irmgard Litten, etc. The Baruch College professor quickly wrote a play about Litten's life, which he had every right to do without my assistance. But why not collaborate with Debi and me? Why not minimally seek our input? As he himself wrote, we carried the torch of Litten's legacy. This man's actions are among the most selfish acts of artistry I have ever experienced. Someone out there thinks this play is worthy of several $100,000 in newsprint ads. Unfortunately, I consider the work, again, which I have read, to be an aesthetic failure, and I am convinced it severely misses the historical mark. While any work that shines light on the life of Hans Litten and the brave men and women who risked their lives to save him, including his mother Irmgard, it is important. It is even more critical to tell Litten's story the right way. In my opinion, this play does not do so. This was a work that should not have been hastily penned. Debi and I have been working on our Litten projects for 2 decades. Such a life deserves such time and effort. The playwright's dedication to me presumes my support of his work. I do not support it at all. I do not in any way wish to be associated with this play, and I am exceedingly disappointed that the playwright flatly ignored my clear demand not to dedicate it to me. It is true that, in our own fashion, Debi, Lyn, and I kept the torch of Hans Litten's legacy burning. For decades, outside his native Germany, Litten was broadly forgotten. It is important to note that Litten was never forgotten in Germany. In fact, there is a Berlin street named after him. Litten's story is truly one of the most critical and enlightening narratives of the Holocaust and World War II. In the past decade, several academic works and documentaries have emerged about Hans Litten. These efforts fill me with joy. I am neither jealous nor envious to see the appearance of these works. These are artists, storytellers, and scholars who took the time to tell the story the right way. What the world still does not know, however, is the information contained in the USC Lord Allen Archive. The archive remains at the University of South Carolina. The public can ask to see it, though the university still refuses to be public about it. USC never even issued so much as a public statement about rediscovering the archive, which I did. That's an entirely different story. But shame on USC. Debbie and I will be publishing our Litten novel in the coming year. In our opinion, our historical fictional work tells the story as it should be told. It includes many things the playwright, for whatever reason, left on the cutting board. In the end, I believe it comes down to the amount of time and reflection required to tell such an important story. For 2 decades, my writing partners and I have been in no rush, no race to beat anyone else to any stage. For there can be no rush when it comes to telling the truth the way it needs to be told. Finally, I own a copy of A Mother Fights Hitler, one of the only signed copies of this in the world. It was the book that Irmgard wrote after Lord Allen rescued her from Germany. And inside is her signature and the message: fight Hitler while you still have time. July 22nd, 1942. Prescient words, then, that are just as meaningful today. The story of Hans Litten is more relevant than ever. Hans risked everything and squared off with Hitler in court because he knew that civilization hung in the balance. Civilization hangs in the balance yet again, only this time, the very country that once freed the world from Nazism and fascism. Debbie, Lyn, and I are no ones in all of this. We just carried a man's story forward the right way. Legacy always finds a way through the cracks of history. I am grateful for the small role I have played. Thank you for listening.